It is truly an honor. If you have not met and spoken with Dr. Ramon Stuart, the president of West Virginia University Institute of Technology here in Beckley, you have missed a tremendous opportunity. You will be inspired and you will want to work with him and with his institution of higher education to make this area better. So at this time, I am going to turn the mic over to President Stuart, and then he is going to make some opening remarks, introduce his panel of distinguished guests, and they are going to share some wonderful information with us about investing in the next generation. Dr. Stuart?
Well, certainly, good morning. All right, we're going to have a little bit of time. It's only a few of us in here, but we're going to have a situation where we talk about this notion of future forward. I want to thank you, Karen, for that generous introduction and everything like that. And ladies and gentlemen, I tell you, I am peacock proud and hyena happy to be here today. And I tell you that because I'm just a poor little country boy from southern West by God, Virginia. Grew up in Welch, West Virginia, in the free state of McDowell County. And one of the things, you can clap for that, go ahead, all right? But one of the things about growing up in the free state of McDowell County, and oftentimes I talk about my mother that was a high school dropout that actually dropped out in the 9th grade. And when she dropped out of high school, she actually went ahead and got her GED. And then she had me at the ripe age of 19, and because she had me so young and everything, she would raise me on what we used to refer to as food stamps. But my mother wanted to do better and be better, so my mother had the notion to hitchhike 32 miles in one direction to actually go to class at Bluefield State College. But more importantly, she had to hitchhike 32 miles back just to get home in time enough to get me off the bus. Now, the reason I talk about that, the reason I look, and to be quite honest with you, I had absolutely no clue of what my mother was doing. I had no clue of what my mother was doing because my mother, just like your mothers and the mothers that have raised us and the fathers that have raised us, they were committed to each one of us doing better and being better. Not only was my mother committed to being better and doing better, she was committed to showing me a way out of no way. And through that, I watched as my mother, and I could not comprehend or appreciate it at that particular time, but I watched as my mother went from a high school dropout with a GED to an associate's degree hitchhiking to Bluefield State to getting her first car, a Chevrolet, going through and getting a bachelor's degree, and then going on to COGS at Marshall University to get a master's degree. And I was blessed to watch my mother go from a GED all the way up to a PhD. Now, why do I tell that story? As we look at the program today and we think about why we are here with Future Forward, we think about this particular panel, we think about this moment, this minute. The reality is the only way that my mother could do what she did, or the only reason I can stand where I stand, is because of education. See, being educated in the public schools of McDowell County, a county school system that actually has been taken over several times, what you find is the only thing that I had was an education and a foundation to stand on. And through that education, that notion of elevation came. That notion of my mother being able to do better and be better. That notion of being able to set the example. That's what we have to do for the young men and women of Raleigh County and throughout this state. And I think that is so important because as you look and you think about where we are as a state, we always are talked about for what we do not have. We always are talked about for what we are not. But the one thing is, nobody can ever take away our ability to navigate these country roads. Nobody can ever take away our ability to understand why Vince Lombardi has always said the only time that success occurs before work is in the dictionary. Because we are a collection of people. We are a collection of proud individuals that knows that we can, shall, and will be successful as long as we put in the work. And so when you think about where we are as a state, you think about people talking about obesity. You think about people talking about our population. You think about people talking about our education. I come here today to ask you, Future Forward, why not us? Why not now? And when you think about it, when you think about where we are in this state, this great state of West Virginia, and you think about the 55 counties that comprise this state, why not us? And why not now? You stand here, and we are the capital of Southern West by God, Virginia. We must be the mold by which other counties, the other 12 counties in Southern West Virginia are formed. But we have to be focused future forward. And so I want to thank Michelle Rodolini and her team for actually even broaching this topic, because at the end of the day, us being future forward is going to require this notion that I like to talk about on campus, this notion of we, not me. See, ladies and gentlemen, for far too long, we have been able to stand in our silos, or as we like to call them, our cylinders of excellence. As long as I have mine, I don't care about you getting yours. But as we look and we think about where we are, but more importantly, we focus on where we need to go, our ability, whether it's politicians, educators, or innovators, our ability to focus on this notion of we, not me, is going to be the catalyst for our transformation, which will lead to elevation. And when I think about that concept and I think about this panel today and what we need to do, I think about higher education. And there's this huge misnomer about higher education. A lot of people think you get those 3 raggedy letters behind your name and you know everything. Well, the reality is having a doctorate does not mean you know everything. It means you know way too much about one certain thing. And having a doctorate in higher education administration, one of the things I think I know just a little bit about, I don't know much about a lot of things, but I know a little bit about this one thing, and that's higher ed. And when you think about it, higher education, the foundation, the bedrock of higher education is K-12. For far too long, we've had this dichotomous us versus them, but in the reality, when K-12 is lacking and leading or lacking to lead, higher education is too. And so working with partners like Serena Starcher, the new superintendent of Raleigh County Schools, we have to come together. First of all, we need to get behind Dr. Starcher. We need to get behind Raleigh County Schools, and every one of us must support that levy. That levy is going to be resources that we have to make sure that our children in K-12 have the foundation that they need to grow. And being an engineer by degree and my original degree and everything, one of the things any good engineer will tell you is everything starts with a solid foundation. And so our ability to get behind Superintendent Starcher, our ability to get behind the Raleigh County Board of Education is going to be our ability to lead to elevation. Because in higher education, we cannot be who we need to be without them. We cannot be who we need to be without you. And why do I say that? Ladies and gentlemen, since 1636, when higher education was founded at Harvard University in America, it was founded for the purpose of seeking, teaching, and preaching truth. That quest for knowledge, that search for truth, has been the catalyst for exploration in this state, in this nation, in our world. And oftentimes, as we think about the different things, we live in the greatest country known to man. But we live here because of not only the expansion of our country during the Industrial Revolution, but we live in this great state, this great nation, this great world because of the elevation that has come through education. And I think that's so important because some of the people go around and they question the value of higher education. They ask, is it worth it? Well, tell me it's not. You look and you think about the different things that an education will do, and you got to understand, education doesn't mean 120 credit hours or a 4-year degree. It doesn't mean 60 hours all the time in an associate degree. Education must be our focus for elevation. Whether it's something that you do with your mind or with your hands, we all must strive to live by the example that my mother set. And that example is striving to be a little bit better today than we were yesterday. And so with that notion in mind, and you think about higher education, you think about higher education in the state of West Virginia. Guys, part of the reason you talk about the challenges in higher education is the fact that we have challenges as a state. We're a state of 1.8 million people, one of the few states in all of America that had a declining population as part of the last census. But then when you think about that decline, when you think about even my beloved free state of McDowell County, where we went from the billion-dollar coal field and known as Little New York to being the first county in all of America where they offered what we now refer to as food stamps. And that happened back in the Kennedy era. Ladies and gentlemen, the trends that we have had and witnessed in this state since 1960 and before are trends that we must move beyond, and the only way that we can move beyond is to recognize that it takes we, not me, and we have to couple education, employment, economic opportunity, growth, and development as a way to change the trajectory of our state. And through that, with that state of 1.8 million people, distributed amongst 55 counties, only 4 of which are actually growing. One of the 4 only had a growth of about 4 people. You look at our particular county, our housing levels are less than they were 10 years ago. Michelle Rodolini has talked about the notion of when was the last housing development developed in Raleigh County. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to rely on the education, because with those 1.8 million people, to be able to educate them gets us an opportunity to elevate them. And through that elevation, we can, shall, and will create an environment that people want to not only be educated, but be graduated, but most importantly, want to live, work, play, and raise a family right here in West Virginia. But there's a challenge. See, of those 1.8 million people, we have 42 public and private 2- and 4-year institutions of higher education. Not only do we have 42 public and private 2- and 4-year institutions of higher education in this state, we actually have 11 different institutions of higher education represented right here in Beckley, West Virginia, a city with only 17,000 people. So what we have to do as educators, we have to figure out how to work collaboratively like we already do with New River Community and Technical College. We have to figure out how to work together to ensure that we can do better, but most importantly, that we can be better. And through that particular work, through that particular innovation, through that particular integration, there is that opportunity to illustrate why we can move forward. But we need your help. You look, I worked originally, my first job out of college was a professor at 23 years old at West Virginia State. And I worked under Dr. Hayes O.W. Carter. Some of you may know him. And I wound up being a pallbearer for Dr. Carter. But I can remember when Dr. Carter wrote my letter of recommendation to go get my PhD at Ohio University, he said to me, "Young man, you have a daunting task before you." And I said, "Why, Dr. Carter? Higher education seems so great and everybody loves it and everything." But he said to me, "When I became a president some 30 years ago, some 85% of my budget came from the state legislature. But as I embark on my 24th year at West Virginia State as a college president, only about 17% of my budget comes from those state legislators now." And so, ladies and gentlemen, as we go forward with education, as we think about this notion of elevation, the question remains, do we divest in the future, or do we find creative and innovative ways to invest in what's next? And that investment starts at a conference like this Future Forward conference, where we're sitting here and we're trying to ask ourselves, how can higher education work in tandem, we, not me, to move this area forward? And if you don't believe it's necessary, think about this. Think about the proverbial college towns. Think about Athens, Georgia, home of UGA. Think about Athens, Ohio, home of Ohio University. Think about Morgantown, West Virginia. And if you really want to know if this works, ask yourself this. There was this place called Moundsville. Moundsville had an opportunity. Moundsville had an opportunity to get a university or get a prison. Tell me how that worked out for Moundsville. And I ask you to ask that question because what you need to understand about this education, what we as the leaders of Raleigh County need to understand, is that education leads to economic growth and development. We oftentimes just talk about getting A's, B's, and C's, but the reality is I'm trying to graduate people that get a job. Like those 3 young men and women that went to Nemacolin. Nemacolin, the place where I got out the car and I had my own butler. The man told me he would draw a bath for me. I'm thinking, you got a sketch pad with you or something? What happens is we have students from right here in Beckley, West Virginia, that are going to Nemacolin and being part of this fine culinary institution because we're not only educating people, we're graduating them and putting them to work. But the challenge is, can they work right here? And so we need to work together because, like I said, with Morgantown, there's more than $1 billion economic impact that WVU has on the city of Morgantown and the surrounding areas. Right here in Beckley, West Virginia, we at WVU Tech, we have a $35 million economic impact. Most people never think about that impact of how we are contributors positively to the future forward. But when you think about the 283 young men and women that work for us at Tech, you think about how the average salary is $57,500. As I think about these politicians, as I think about these businesses and these industries and everything like that, you understand the impact that we have on your bottom line. But as we think about future forward, as we think about helping our communities to prosper, we have to ask ourselves, is there an opportunity to do better and be better? And so, ladies and gentlemen, with that backdrop, with that frame of reference, with that notion of what higher education is, not only what it is, but ladies and gentlemen, I want us to focus future forward. I want us to focus on helping our communities prosper. With that notion and backdrop in hand, I'm going to invite to the stage right now some people that are way smarter than I am. I'm going to invite to the stage right now these individuals that are in the trenches. Somebody like me, I got an easy job. All I got to do is try to give a vision and pray that somebody else will see it. Not only pray that they'll see it, but more importantly, pray that they'll achieve it. And so those individuals in those trenches, in the trenches that are the architects for actually getting the things done, I have 2 of those visionaries with me today. And so I want to invite to the stage not only my chief of staff, but also the chief of staff of my good friend Bonnie Copenhaver, who could not be here with us today. I want to invite both Jen Wood and Mike Green to the stage, the chief of staffs of WVU Tech and of New River Community and Technical College, because I'm going to work with them to see how we address some of the challenges that I open with. So welcome. So Jen and Mike, if you would, take a second or two to introduce the crowd to yourself.
Good morning. My My name's Michael Green. I am Vice President of External Affairs and Chief of Staff for New River Community and Technical College. I've been with the college since 2016, and part of this introduction, I would be remiss not to say that Dr. Bonnie Copenhaver gives her regrets that she couldn't be here with us today. But again, excited to be here, excited about the prelude that Dr. Stuart gave, and he is definitely a motivational speaker, a thinker, and a visionary, and thank you.
Welcome, Mike.
Good to be with you, Mike, and thank you so much, President Stuart. I'm pleased to be here with you guys today. I'm Jen Wood. As the president said, I'm his chief of staff and a proud Golden Bear alumna. I was a graduate of Tech from the Montgomery campus and was part of the team that helped make the trip from Montgomery to Beckley. I'm a first-generation college graduate and very lucky that I had a family to help me through college, but I was the first in my family to get a college degree. So the work that I do at Tech since 2013 of returning to my alma mater to serve in a variety of roles is to really help engage young people in our community and make sure that folks have educational opportunities. And I'm very, very proud to be a part of President Stewart's team to help make sure that our students achieve their educational goals. And I was born and raised in Fayette County and proud to be one of those folks that President Stewart mentioned about being here and being able to get an education, live here, work here, and to be engaged with my family here. So thank you so much for inviting me to be here.
Thank you so much, Mike and Jen. And we're going to go ahead and get started. We got a few minutes with you all. And honestly, if there are questions from the crowd, I want to take that too, because I think, again, with this notion of we, not me, we need to work together to figure out how to make things better. And so, speaking of working together, I talked about K-12, and I talked about the work Dr. Starcher is doing and everything like that. And for too long, I believe that we have disassociated or decoupled K-12 and higher education. And so, Mike, do you mind sharing what New River is doing to work with K-12 partners to build a bridge?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for the question, because this is one for...
We building.
This is an initiative that we really looked at. Everyone is struggling for enrollment, and we felt like that K-12 system was something that we could really invest in, not only resources of our staff, but also our financial resources. And so we've made a concerted effort. You may or may not know, but 8.65% of high school graduates attend a community and technical college in West Virginia. 5 years ago, we had two of our 9 counties met that threshold. So we knew that was an opportunity for us. So under Dr. Copenhaver's leadership, we invested and enhanced our recruiters. We have 2 of them here today and their supervisor, which I'm glad to see them here. But we really made a concerted effort to get into our high schools. So each month, our recruiters in our high schools once a month. Part of that is to, one, expose students to what New River Community and Technical College has to offer, but also enhancing what we are considering our dual credit pathways. And so we have we've created pathways. Are we going to talk about dual credit later, Dr. Stewart? Or okay. So I'll wait to answer this question. We talk about these dual credit pathways, but we have really just been visible. We worked with again. We have 9 counties that we work with. So if you're a part of the case system, whether a high school, whether the Board of Education, I'm sure that you've seen us be visible, a lot more visible in the last 2 to 3 years. Again, it's about exposure for us to share the opportunities that New River and obviously other higher education institutions can provide to the students in the K-12 system.
Thank you so much, Mike, and it's phenomenal to see the work that New River is doing to create that K-12 pathway or pathline. But Jen, at WVU Tech, there's work being done with K-12. Recently, we had about 3,000 students that came on the campus from K-12. So why don't you tell us about that event and some of the vision behind it?
Absolutely. So under President Stewart's leadership and focusing on the Southern 13, really making sure that we're extending an open arm to all of our counties in the southern part of the state. So many folks don't know about Tech, and if they do, they may know, oh yeah, I had an uncle or an aunt that studied engineering there, but they don't know about the plethora of academic programs that we have and all the services that we're able to provide to support our students. So really working with our K-12 partners to make sure they know who we are, what we do, and that we can do it for them and their students. But specifically to what President Stewart mentioned about Raleigh County, Superintendent Starcher reached out about the interest of having having Clay to Go, which is a traveling mobile exhibit from the Clay Center in Charleston, West Virginia. And they didn't have the space to dedicate for a full month on their properties to be able to have their students, their elementary students, to be able to have that experience. It is an interactive exhibit around science, engineering, and math. And so for us to be able to host that on our campus, Superintendent Starcher reached out. We were able to identify the space on campus. Buses of students came every day for 17 days, I believe, and school days, but then also some evening events where families could come and connect with the exhibits, but also connect with tech and understand that we are here and really connected with our community, and that we are communiversity, where the community is the university and the university is community. We want to make sure that we're showing people that we are a place in their community that they can come to and have experiences and see it as an option for them to pursue education. So as President Stuart mentioned, we had about 3,000 students and their families that came through during that time, and just really had some folks on our campus that helped make that possible. They got to eat in the dining hall. They loved that experience, and they got to have some great interactive activities while they were there.
Thank you so much, Jen. And you really hit on something that I talk about quite a bit. And you see in each one of your chairs this notion would connect with tech. And I think this is the same thing with New River Community and Technical College. We must be steadfast and resolute in making sure that people know who we are, they know what we do, but most importantly, they know that we can, shall, and will do it for them too. Whether it's a 2-year education at New River Community and Technical College or that continued matriculation on to WVU Tech. And I think that's so important, and as Jen talked, I often espouse this concept called the communiversity, where the community is the university and the university is the community. And it's funny, you go to try to change a roadway in Beckley, West Virginia with $17 million of somebody else's money, and you get a lot of Facebook famous traffic going on. But in there, somebody said to me, "Oh, you're trying to grow this institution to 20,000 students." Well, ladies and gentlemen, if we grow this institution to 20,000 students, we all going to have a whole different good vibe in Beckley. But with the notion of communiversity in play, that notion that the community is the university and the university is the community, knowing that New River Community and Technical College has community as the root of their particular title, the real thing that we have to look at and understand is that we need to be able to finance a vision. We need, faith without works is dead, but even faith and works without a check is also pretty challenging to make something move. And so, Jen, as you think about the communiversity and you think about the concept of the community being the university and the university being the community, can you talk about some of the work that's been done with Pendleton Community Bank to finance a vision?
Absolutely, I'd be happy to. We are so pleased to have our communiversity partners, folks that show up for us, and we greatly appreciate everybody who shows up for us and helps us make connections. But specifically, the team at Pendleton Community Bank has shown up for us in ways that I don't think has ever happened at WVU Tech in my time, either as a student or as an employee. They are investing in the campus to help make sure that students have access to career and campus activities. They are showing up in a way of collaborating on events. If you've visited their booth, it's right over here. Their banner that they have is really talking about us working together and communiversity. And they are not just saying it, they are doing it, they're walking the walk, and they're actually putting resources behind it to make sure that our students, faculty, and staff have opportunities and experiences and helping to grow our campus environment so that it continues to be a place that people want to come and check out and experience, and whether that's the Clay to Go with Raleigh County Schools or other activities that we've been able to do in the last year or so of just opening our doors to the community and engaging with folks so that they know that we are here and we are an institution for them to have an experience and for them to have their dreams achieved with services and support that's there, and the financial literacy and engagement that Pendleton Community Bank has been able to do to help our students, faculty, and staff know the resources that they have at PCB, but also helping them plan for their futures, whether that's buying a house here in the community or opening a savings account. They've also showed up for our youngest Golden Bears. We have a program called Cub Club that's for members of the community of 16 years of age or younger. It's a free program thanks to the support of PCB. And they've also stepped up and said, you know what, we're going to create a Cub Club savings account where folks can come and open an account with $25. The bank will match that $25. And for every time that young person brings in perfect attendance or an honor roll, they will give them another $5 in their account. So yeah, everybody give them a round of applause because that's huge. So I do want to say they give $5 when they open the account, $5 every time that they come in with their honor roll or perfect attendance. And that's also building the future for those young people, helping them understand how to save, how to plan for the future, and we really appreciate their support.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, that community support, that communiversity is so important, but the reality is we need more people. We need not only more community people supporting New River and WVU Tech, but we also need our state government. And, you know, Mike was, when he introduced himself, he talked about what he does now. But one of the great things about Mike is what he also did before. And as you know, Mike can also be referred to as Senator Green. And so, Senator Green, when you think about financing, you think about not only the current challenges that you see financially, and huge shout out to the WVU system, New River Community and Technical College. Our two institutions were only 4 institutions in the state of West Virginia that got additional funding, or in southern West Virginia that got additional funding for exceeding the metrics in terms of enrollment and retention and stuff. But I'm going to say Senator Green. Senator Green, in terms of finance and visions in higher education, thinking back to the days when you walked the hallowed halls under the gold dome, what are some things that we need to be doing, or elected officials could be doing, to help higher education finance a vision?
Yeah, no, and again, it is a challenge. I mean, as you mentioned earlier, Dr. Stuart, we talk about our population, we talk about the high school graduation rate, and we talk about the numbers of institutions of higher education we have. It is a challenge. I mean, it's a supply and demand. So when we're dealing with that challenge, the first thing that we have to do, and both these institutions do it, is we have to be great stewards of our public funds that's provided to us. We have to be great stewards of the tuition that our students pay. And I think we do an outstanding, wonderful job in that regard. Secondly, you know, when we look about, and Dr. Stuart mentioned the funding formula last year, 2 years ago, the legislature passed the funding formula that basically laid out metrics to graduation rate, attainment rates, providing jobs to the community. It was a very complicated task. They did that. This year, they were supposed to come back, or the intention was to come back and provide funding for those metrics that were established. That piece of legislation didn't pass as of today. There's some discussion that the legislature will come back in May to revisit that. But as Dr. Stuart mentioned, there were 4 institutions in the entire state that exceeded those metrics, that were allocated additional funding because of the success they had in graduating students and putting people in the workforce. WVU Tech and New River Community and Technical College were 2 of those 4. So as Dr. Stuart mentioned, you know, the staff and the faculty, the folks who are on the front lines doing these works is what made that successful. Now, to answer his question, historically, state funding, there was no rhyme or reason for it, if you would. It was basically those members of the legislature that were in a position of influence and power. But there was no rhyme or reason. There was no FTE. There was no dollar amount set per FTE, no dollar amount set to headcount. It was just a political process. New River has always historically been the least funded CTC in the state of West Virginia. That's a challenge. So we were advocating. We wanted to see the funding formula go into place. We wanted to be judged against our peers by our success. So, you know, this existing legislature now, I think, did a marvelous job in trying to corral this humongous, you know, other than the DHHR system, higher education is the second biggest draw on the state budget. So they had to figure out a way to, again, instill and protect and be great stewards of our state taxpayer dollars. And I think this funding formula, I'm hopeful that coming in May, that they will revisit this, hopefully fund the funding formula. If not, I look forward for them to do that in next January. And again, it's basically a performance-based funding, that the more success you have, the more folks that you create jobs for, the more jobs that you fill, you're rewarded for your successes.
And I think that's so important what you said, Mike. First of all, there were 4 institutions in this entire state that received that funding. 2 of those institutions are right here in your backyard. So whenever people have questions about the futility or the usefulness of higher education, you all as voters, you all as leaders have to know that your educational institutions are working for you. And as we continue to work and do what we need to do, that gives us an opportunity to not only keep current business, but also attract new business. Because one of the things that we know, and I read it somewhere, and some of you may have read it too, if you're faithful with a little, you will be made ruler over a lot. And when you think about that concept and you think about what Senator Green talked about the scarce resources, we in higher education know how to make $1 out of 15 cents. That's a dime and a nickel, okay, if I was using Tupac right now. But what happens is, even though we have been able to make $1 out of 15 cents and everything, the reality is there are some challenges. There's some challenges on the horizon. Challenges that as I look around and I see these political signs and the different things up, and I see one for Doug Scaff, and he and I was in Student Government Association together as little boys at WVU back in, I'm not going to tell you back when, just not too long ago, okay? I see these politicians here, and I see people that are not only incumbents, but aspiring to be leaders in the political space. And we're here to tell you there are challenges in higher education that we need and want to help get your help to face. And so with those challenges in mind, Mike, from the community and technical college perspective, what are some of the challenges that you have right now that not only the people in this audience need to understand, but those aspiring politicians too?
Yeah, well, and for us, and again, I want to speak about New River a little bit. The challenge for us is really just being visible. Really just, as Dr. Stuart mentioned, letting the communities, as I said, we serve 9 counties in southeastern West Virginia. And one of those obviously is here, our administrative headquarters are here in Raleigh County. But one thing that we found is that, I'll give you an example, the West Virginia Invest grant system. The legislature under, at that time, Senate President Mitch Carmichael passed a West Virginia Invest, which West Virginia Invest provides free tuition to, in our case, 30 of our 60 programs qualify for West Virginia Invest. So the Department of Education, the Department of Commerce, they work together to determine these high in-demand jobs. So there's a list of 100 and some in-demand jobs that the legislature funds through the West Virginia Invest for free tuition for those programs. Well, obviously, that was a huge windfall for us in the community and technical college system. And we spent thousands of dollars. Our recruiters, our folks were out nonstop promoting this initiative because we wanted to expose, especially those high school students, those folks who are returning to the workforce for one reason or another, that this opportunity was there for you. We're 18 months into this campaign, and our recruiters and our campus directors and our community outreach folks came back and they said, Mike, our counselors aren't even aware of this program. So, we literally, we did an email campaign to every counselor in our 9 counties. We did direct mail pieces. The state of West Virginia through CFWV did a West Virginia Invest campaign statewide. But for whatever reason, the message didn't get out. So that was just a microcosm for us. And, and I liken it to when WVU Tech moved to Beckley. There was some thought that WVU Tech was going to be competition for us. There was some thought that New River was going to again struggle because there was another institution in our area. Complete opposite happened. This is such a great partnership that New River has with Tech. Completely 2 different missions. And together, we're allowed to not only build off of each other's brand, build off of the great things that the other institutions are doing. And I'll just tell you that, the culinary program that Dr. Stewart's talking about, that those folks are going up to Nemacolin. And I too once had a bath drawn for me in Nemacolin. So, but that culinary program, that's an associate degree program. That the CTC system has the opportunity at first right of refusal. Well, they had the equipment, they had everything in place for that. So we deferred the opportunity for us to offer the culinary program. So when Carolyn Long was here as president, Dr. Copenhagen and Carolyn Long worked an agreement to where that culinary started. I mean, those are the collaborations and the partnerships that we have with Tech. And I can tell you the relationship between Dr. Stuart and Dr. Copenhagen is second to none. And there's no competition here. We look at it as an opportunity for continued growth and provide opportunities to Southern West Virginia.
Thank you so much, Mike. And Jen, what are some of the big challenges you're seeing from the four-year aspect or even the WVU system as a whole?
Similar to what Mike has shared, it really is an awareness thing and access. Prior to coming back to Tech, I worked in a college access program, and so many young people don't see college as an option for them. They're afraid of what that means for them. They're scared that it's expensive. So our folks that are out in the community, and it's really all on us, all of us, and we ask, and I don't want to speak for Mike, but I think we could say that we want all of you to share with folks that you go to church with, folks that you go to school with, folks that you see in the community, folks you work with, that there are educational resources for people to go to college and stay here in West Virginia and to graduate with little to no debt. The West Virginia Invest program, which our culinary program has access to, but we also have access to institutional scholarships and the Promise Scholarship, West Virginia Higher Education Grant. All of those stack on top of each other. So especially if you are within a 50-mile radius of Beckley, you can come to campus and study at Beckley, not have to live in the residence hall, though we'd love to have you if you want the on-campus experience. But you can come and get an education and leave with little to no debt. We are ranked #1 in West Virginia for return on investment for a college degree of all the institutions in West Virginia, and we are top 15% in the entire country for earning potential. So based upon what a student invests in their education at Tech versus what they make in their career is in the top 15% in the entire country. So when you talk to folks, your neighbors, your friends, they wonder, can I afford an education? We ask for you to share with them that they absolutely can. And we have resources and institutions right here in their backyard that can help them start and pursue education and to go to places that they never dreamed possible and not have to worry about that big student loan payment when they're done and get good jobs when they finish. We had an employer on campus yesterday, IVS Hydro, talking to our construction management program and civil engineering program students. By the way, if you didn't know, we have the only four-year program in construction management in the state at Tech. We invite you to come and check out those facilities and see what our students are learning. But we have employers coming, talking to our students, competing against other employers to try to hire our students and give them great opportunities to stay here in the region. So really, I would say our challenge is awareness and engagement and knowledge that education is valuable, affordable, and worthwhile.
Thank you so much. And you know, both of you said affordability. And obviously being in the WVU system, and one of the greatest things about coming back home is to be able to study under E. Gordon Gee. Somebody I studied before I ever thought I could or would be a college president. And, you know, obviously there was some news that talked about this budget deficit. Some was introduced to this term called structural deficit, where at the end of the day, our revenues were never going to keep up with our expenses. Those types of changes have gone on in higher education or in business and industry all the time. But it's new in higher ed, and there was quite a bit of backlash, although when you go up to Rutgers had about a $375 million deficit. You go to the Penn State system, they were at about $473 million. You keep going around, obviously higher education, one of the biggest challenges is it being able to meet its budgetary requirements. And that's coupled with this new phenomenon is the enrollment cliff. And when you think about it, many of you grew up and you had siblings. Then people like me came along and I'm the only one. And that's partly because my mom looked at me and said, boy, God bless me with you. I don't want to try to do this again because I don't know where the headache will come from. But when we look at those things, we look at that enrollment challenge and everything like that, we have to do something different, because we should know that if we do what we've always done, we can, shall, and will only get what we already have. So understanding the challenges that you all talked about and the challenge that I mentioned about the enrollment cliff and the finances, Jen, what are some of the opportunities that we have to move forward through higher education?
I think we have great opportunities of making sure that we connect with our business community and industry leaders. We have advisory boards for all of our programs that give us insight of what they need. And the big part of that is to make sure that our students are learning exactly what they need when they are in school so that they can hit the ground running and be ready to go day one. But I think beyond that, we need to make sure that we are looking at programs that are the most connected with what the industry needs. I mentioned the construction management program earlier. That is a direct relationship with the industry saying to us, specifically one of our alums as well as many others, John Jarrett of Jarrett Construction, saying we need people who work in construction management. Yes, we need civil engineers and we need other engineers, we need business leaders, we need other folks, but we need people to work in this industry, and we were able to answer that call and create that program. We know that in the tourism and hospitality area in our region, and that continues to grow, we know that that culinary program will continue to grow, and we'll be able to build the pipeline of culinarians for this area. I know that one of the big, focuses and missions of the community and technical college system is to make sure that they're addressing industry needs and being able to stand up programs that are two-year programs very quickly. But we need to hear from you all. We need to know, what the needs are so we can serve those needs. But we also need to look inside ourselves. I think a challenge within higher ed is that we're spending a lot of time asking our students to do self-reflection and help them learn and grow, but higher ed as an institute or as an industry needs to look inside themselves and say, are we doing what we need to do and making sure that we're serving students in the way we need to serve them? Are we creating the academic programs that they need and addressing those budget challenges? Because we have to. And you guys are business leaders, you work with your own personal finances. You know that you have to make sure that you're doing what you can do to make sure that you're making budget, but also that you're serving your customers. And our customers are our students and the members of the community, and we want to make sure that we're doing that.
And so, Mike, what are some of the opportunities at New River?
Yeah, no, and I want to echo what Jen said. And likewise, those advisory councils that we have 15 that are currently active in different programs at New River, and those are vital. I mean, not only, and as Jen mentioned, we in the CT Community and Technical College system, we're built to be nimble. We're built to be able to move quickly and rapidly to meet the workforce and job creation that's needed. So on May 1st, we're having our Tech Expo out at Gent that we'll be highlighting and promoting all of our programs or our workforce and technical in nature. And we'd invite anyone to come out and to see what we're doing. But I would be remiss, again, if I don't. I know we have a couple board members here, and the president would be very disappointed when we're talking about that enrollment cliff. We're talking about those budgetary challenges. I can tell you that under her leadership, she was a visionary. About 5 years ago, we started proactively addressing this. So at this point in time, New River Community and Technical College is in a more positive budget standpoint than we've ever been. 2016 was a financial cliff for us. And then since then, our budget, our enrollment is up 8%. Our enrollment is the highest it's been in the last 8 years since 2014. So, again, we see the challenges, we know the challenges that are out there, and again, with collaboration and partners like WU Tech and our other institutions that we partner with, and that community aspect is very important for us. And as Dr. Stuart mentioned, community is in our name. It is in our mission. It is what we do. So, again, encourage any and everyone that's in earshot of this, especially if you're a business, to get involved, be a part of the process, and be a part of helping provide those opportunities to Southern West Virginia.
And that's so important. It was that we thing, not that me thing. And I want to thank leaders that work, like Dr. Tom Lemke, that is a member of the New River Community and Technical College Board. He's working so that we can do better and be better, so appreciate his leadership. And speaking of that, working together and collaborating and stuff, obviously the COVID-19 pandemic really magnified some of the challenges that we have in the healthcare system in America. Now, and I don't think anybody on this earth could have prepared for the magnitude what COVID was, and more importantly, what it did. But we have to work together, you know, in this we concept to build a more robust system for healthcare. And so over at New River, what are you all doing, especially in the realm of nursing, Mike, to address this particular phenomena?
Yeah, and COVID was, you know, everyone here knows, it was definitely a game changer. It required us to look at, one, how are we doing things, and then how can we do things different? And the thing that really, you know, I always like to say that anytime there's, you know, an adversarial or a situation that's not planned, it gives you an opportunity to do and be better. And so during those, you know, March, I think it was March of 20 was when the world changed as we knew it. So we had to, again, we had to act, and we had to change the delivery of all of our programs, especially those allied health programs and the technical programs who had hands-on initiatives. So during that time, we shifted, we made that work. But what we've found now is that the students are not coming back into class. That online, that hybrid flex, that delivery method that was forced upon us for the most part, is now those customers are telling us that's what they want, but that's how they're registering and enrolling in classes. So that really changed the delivery methods on a lot of our programs, especially the allied health and the nursing programs. And I can tell you from my perspective, I'm so proud of our academic affairs team and the folks that made this happen. But we have currently 4 locations here in Beckley, Princeton, Summersville, and Lewisburg. We have cohorts of 20 in each campus. So we have 80 LPN program and 80 LPN students. Talking about that partnership with the ARH system. So the Summers County ARH system about 2 years ago reached out to us wanting an LPN program on site. So they provided us a location within the hospital. They renovated and remodeled that space for us. We now have capacity for 10 additional students, LPN students. This past year, this fall, we have 6 students in there. So we're looking to continue to grow. And one thing that 2 years ago, we started our ADN bridge program. So it's an LPN to RN bridge program, something that the college has sought after for about 10 to 12 years. We never really could get that off of center, but again, hiring the right person, we hired a director of nursing who had the wherewithal and the knowledge to make this happen. So in Lewisburg, we had our first ADN, Associate Degree in Nursing program for RNs. And we just completed our second year, 3rd cohort. It started out with 12 students, and now we're at capacity at 25. Each one of those students who have completed that, we have 100% passage rate first time on the NCLEX. So we are meeting the needs of the community. And now that we're out of that 2-year initial phase, we're looking to expand that. And that expansion is going to be based on support from those communities. So, you know, we're looking obviously here at Beckley. This is my hometown, and I'm a little partial. And I'll tell you, even though I am Vice President of External Affairs and Chief of Staff, you know, I want to make sure Beckley is successful and succeeds in those enrollment numbers. But, you know, it's a great opportunity for us. And just, you know, again, I'll tell you that this fall, 24, including our dual enrollment student, we had over 1,200. Our enrollment was over 1,200 at New River. And again, that's the largest number it's been since 2014. So.
And thank you so much, and I love that growth, and I love that vision exhibited by Bonnie to start 5 years ago working on this, and nursing obviously is a big thing. And you know, when we think about nursing, one of the things at Tech, usually when people think of us as the Institute of Technology, they think engineering. And we do have world-renowned ABIT accredited engineering programs, 6 of them, but we do more than that. We engineer successful biologists. We engineer successful criminal justice people. We engineer successful accountants. And so, Jen, can you tell us about the nurses that we successfully engineer?
Absolutely. So our nursing program on campus does so much work, obviously standard clinical hours, but their outreach, President Stuart mentioned the COVID-19 pandemic earlier, and we would have not been able to have our vaccination and testing clinics on our campus if it was not for our nursing faculty and students who helped diligently and in an amazing, dedicated way. Then they would go out and work the drive-through testing clinics with the community. Also going back to our conversation about making sure that we're connecting with industry, we're just so grateful of the partnerships that we have for our nursing program with Appalachian Regional Hospital, the VA, Raleigh General, to make sure that we have placements for students and there's opportunities for them. But we also have folks like our friends at Appalachian Regional Hospital that make sure that students have access to resources and information of what's available to them, either with financial support, loan forgiveness. They come in and talk to our students. I know that we have folks from our other medical partners in the community that come in and do that as well. But we have folks that have really shown up for our nursing students and have really been competitive, and we know why, because our nursing students are amazing and just have wonderful knowledge and understanding of the program, but also exceptional bedside manner of just being able to go out and have that servant heart to do the work that you need from a nursing standpoint. So we're just very appreciative of the partners that we have to make sure that our students can graduate. If they graduate and pass their NCLEX the first time, which most of our students do, any given semester, all of them do typically, they will receive that testing fee reimbursed thanks to our partners, our medical partners in the community. And that just makes a big difference for our students who are, again, going back to making sure that it's affordable. There is no challenge for a student who wants to pursue nursing right now to come to Tech or other places and really get their school paid for or get their loans forgiven if they have any loans at all, and to have a really good job at a wonderful medical provider when they graduate and be able to stay right here in our community and serve all of us when we are sick and need some support.
Thank you, Jen. And ladies and gentlemen, I know that we stand between you and lunch, and one of the things that I've always been taught is to be on time. And so we're going to land, not only are we building this plane while we're flying it, we're going to land this bad boy too. And so with that, it's going to be the final question, and we have about 5 minutes total. So if our panelists or respondents will take about 2 minutes. Guys, we've been talking a lot about education, specifically higher education. And I believe that education leads to elevation. And now I believe more than ever, when you think about the necessity for us to be future forward focused, it requires that we, not me mentality. And so with that we, not me mentality, Mike, tell us what New River, in 2 minutes or less, needs from this community to be able to not only go forward, but grow forward.
Yeah, and I think it's a summary of what we said. It's community involvement, community engagement, and buy-in and support, not only for the institutions, but for the K through 12 system, for the students, for the support services that our students require. And I'll use this as an example because, again, I see one of the big accomplishments we've had in the last 18 months. Again, we talked about dual credit pathways. So dual credit in high schools are twofold. One, it's an opportunity for a high school student to take a course that they get both a high school credit for and a college credit. Well, Nicholas County High School, and Ms. Tori Taylor's out here, she's a campus director that represents Raleigh, Fayette, and Nicholas and Webster counties. She was able to work with the superintendent and board of education in Nicholas County to create an LPN nursing pathway. So currently we have 5 students that are seniors in the Nicholas County High School system that will graduate with their high school diploma, a week later receive a certificate for an LPN. We have 7 that are juniors that are going to be in that same pathway. I think this week we're going back to register the sophomore classes. That has grown exponentially. The interest that's grown, so relationships, partnerships like that. So within the next 18-month window, we're going to have 12 high school graduates that will have an LPN certificate. And I can assure you that sophomore cohort, the interest has been outstanding, we're probably going to have upwards of 15 to 20 in that group. So again, those are the types of success stories that we can have when we have community buy-in. You know, we're very fortunate, again, to be concentrated in 9 counties. So even though it is a large service area for us, the President has invested, again, resources both in our personnel and our finances to make sure that we can share those success stories throughout our service region. And again, you know, in closing from my part, I just want to thank you all. I want to thank the opportunity, Michelle, thank you for the opportunity to be here. But again, just continue to be involved, continue to support and understand that the challenges that these young people have today, it's much different than what we faced in our time growing up. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Mike. And Jen, real quick, we talk about we, not me.
Absolutely. So we just ask folks to connect with tech. We want you to go to our website. We want you to talk to folks at your community center, your school, your church, your neighbors, everybody, and let them know that there are educational resources for them right here at home. They don't have to go far, but when they come and pursue education, they'll be able to go far because we have so many opportunities available to them that's affordable, that's worthwhile. They'll get a job when they finish. They can stay here, work, live, play, raise a family, and be a part of this wonderful community and be a proud West Virginian and a proud Golden Bear. So we just invite you, if you didn't have one of the cards that were on the seats right here at front or from yesterday, stop back and see our folks at our booth there in the corner to get a Connect with Tech card and some information about tech and share it with folks. We just ask you to share information about the wonderful resources, programs, and outcomes, because that's the biggest part. We graduate students who go out into the workforce and are serving businesses and organizations in this community. So we just ask for you to engage with us and engage with your network to help build the awareness of WVU Tech in Beckley.
Ladies and gentlemen, give Jen and Mike a round of applause. And hold on, guys. Look, they're ready to go eat lunch too. As we close out, I want to thank you all for spending this time with us today to talk about education, because I do believe, as my mother illustrated for me and I've been blessed to do for myself, I believe that education leads to elevation. As a president and or provost, I've been blessed to have my name on more than 3,000 college degrees. But the first time I ever sat down and saw my name on a college degree was the degree of a man by the name of Gary Johnson. And if any of you ever come to my office, you will find that Gary Johnson's degree sits on my desk to this day. And so that was back in 2016. And the reason Gary Johnson's degree sits on my desk to this day is because Gary was about to graduate from Fort Valley State University, where I was the provost, and they had used my signature to do the new degrees and everything. And unfortunately, Gary, whose wife was pregnant and graduating too, and they were a fiance and about to get married. Unfortunately, Gary died in a car crash coming back from an event. And what happens is we were going to give his degree to him posthumously, but when they sent it to me, the swoosh in my signature was incomplete. Ladies and gentlemen, that degree sits on my desk to this day because it reminds me all the time that my work as an educator, until I effectively elevate those that I educate, is always incomplete. And so with that, I want to thank you all for coming out and spending this time with us. And I want you to spend a little moment. I'm going to close with this, and this is something that sticks with me all the time. And as you know, I like a little poetry here and there or whatever. But Benjamin E. Mays, this world-renowned college president down at Morehouse College, and he had this poem he called God's Minute. And he reminds us that I've only just a minute, only 60 seconds in it. Forced upon me, can't refuse it. Didn't seek it, didn't choose it. But it's up to me to use it. I must give account if I abuse it. Because it's just a tiny little minute, but eternity is in it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our minute. This is our moment. This is the time that Beckley-Raleigh County Chamber helps us all come together, future forward. God bless.
I don't think we can clap enough. So let's again thank Dr. Stuart, Jen Wood, and Mike Green.